So, what is a content creator? What is an artist? What is a creative? What is a visual artist? What is a fine artist? I want to talk today about what it's like to be an artist, which is a very general term, but I use it to mean visual artist, fine artist, and a content creator at the same time. And do you have to be a content creator if you're an artist? Are there ways to have an art career without having to feel like you are signing up for this extra thing that you maybe don't want to do? How can they all work together? Let's talk it all out. So I go back and forth, sometimes feeling really inspired, really excited to kind of lean into the content creator thing and make content for Instagram and obviously now for YouTube and balance it out with my fine art practice. But sometimes I feel not excited to do those things. Sometimes I feel like I'm in my studio, I'm like in a zone, and I'm like, I'm gonna like break up my flow by stopping to create this reel. And, wouldn't it be amazing if I could like just be an artist and not do the content creation thing? And how to like balance it all and figure it out is a lot. And I would say that there's no right answer. If you like love just being a visual artist, and not just, if you love being a visual artist and you are like, I want nothing to do with creating content, I'm just gonna like put pictures of my art on my website, maybe on Instagram, and just let the rest take care of itself, or go through galleries or other channels, that is totally fine. That is like totally doable. And if you are like, well, I am creative, I maybe enjoy some other outlets, like maybe you're a painter, but making videos is kind of fun. Like that's how I feel, then go for it. And you can just kind of like feel out what works for you, but there's no right answer. The way I kind of look at it though is like, if you are a content creator, like that is your main creative outlet, whether you're a YouTuber, Instagrammer, TikToker, whatever, it kind of feels to me, I'm not even like judging this one way or another, I'm just saying like this is just the way I see it, that it's almost like the material that you're creating, like your art form, is also your marketing. Anyone who's posting a TikTok video or a YouTube video or even like a blog post, that's their creative outlet. And when they upload it, they are marketing it. So it's like the content and the marketing kind of exist together. So in that way, it's almost like a more, at least it feels to me, I'm not saying it's easy, but like kind of like a more simplified system of your marketing and your art form are the same thing. And you don't, yes, of course you have to approach like your video titles and SEO and think about what your audience wants, and that can like kind of drag on the creative process as well. But I feel like the difference is, if you are a visual artist or any kind of like non-digital artist, I guess, if you're a musician or a writer or a filmmaker, that's kind of in the more traditional sense of filmmaking, you have to make the thing that's your thing, your creative form. And then on top of that, you have to do the marketing. And if that's social media, then that feels like double the work, because it feels like, oh, I put all of this time and energy into making this art piece, and creative energy, like whatever kind of units of creativity there are, you've kind of used them on this thing you made, this art form. And now you're like, okay, now I also have to make more art forms in the form of Instagram reels or YouTube videos. And yeah, it sometimes feels like extra work. So I don't have like an answer to that kind of way of thinking. I just kind of like wanted to voice that and see if anyone kind of relates to that system or the way it feels sometimes. So like I said, I feel like sometimes the drawback is that I think in some ways creativity can beget more creativity. Like you've probably noticed this, if you start doing one thing, no matter what your medium is, you might end up being like, oh, I have 10 more ideas now. And it kind of like juices you up and gets the creative things flowing. But there is also, it's almost like the thing of decision-making power or like willpower, that like you have a certain amount at the beginning of the day and your energy is high, and then your creativity does kind of have a limit to it, at least, until you recharge again. And so that can feel definitely draining if you're like, oh, I've used 90% of my creativity stars, let's call them, on this painting or whatever, and now I have to like come up with some brilliant idea for content online. That's a lot, so I totally get that. Again, this is just kind of like I wouldn't call it a rant. I feel like it's like subtle rant. I'm not like raging against anything. I'm just kind of like sharing how I feel about balancing fine art and content creation. But I don't have like all the answers, but I do have a couple of things that have helped me. And one thing that I've talked about with the members in my membership and with like one-on-one clients who are artists, who, by the way, we all, at least all the artists I know, struggle with that balance of I want to grow on Instagram, like I want people to find my art, but now I have to like do this other creative thing of content creation in addition to my art making, and it's a lot. And one tip I usually give is to focus on just kind of popping in here and there, like not feeling like you have to record every second of your creative process. To be honest, like it's kind of works out because back in the day, maybe more kind of like long form things like that did well on Instagram, where people really wanted to see like a time lapse of an entire painting process or something like that. And some channels and some artists still do well with like time lapses, but you don't have to feel like you have to show every single part of your process. One, there may be stuff that is like proprietary or like personal to you that's part of your process that you don't necessarily want to share, and that's totally fine. And the other thing is, people don't necessarily want to see the whole process. Like, yeah, there are on YouTube maybe more people who are interested in seeing like the full process of something that you're making. But even in that case, you can kind of pick and choose and edit what you're showing. You know, it doesn't have to be every single thing. And then for things like Instagram Reels and TikToks, or even YouTube Shorts, things are moving fast these days. You might have noticed that a like 7-second clip of me doing one stitch of my embroidery will often get way more views than a 20-second clip of me taking you through every step of my process. That's kind of the nature of these like short form videos, and just the internet in general is people kind of want like short and snappy and then move on, or they want to binge like 20 of your short and snappy videos. So I feel like those are my two big tips. Is one, you don't have to share as much as you think. And two, if you have like a couple days a week where you work in the studio, or even one day and it's a few hours, don't feel like you have to like have your phone out the entire time filming everything you're doing, because that will definitely slow you down and not feel good unless you like love doing that, which is totally fine. What I like to do is like, say I'm working on a piece for like a few hours, I will maybe once an hour take out my phone for like 2 minutes and film a couple things. Again, maybe like a quick shot of me doing like embroidery or like a single brush stroke or something like that, like really simple things. And then I put my phone down and I try not to feel like I need to record what I'm doing. I just like put it off to the side and like, okay, I will record something else in a little bit. Or it could even be like just once a day, you bring out your phone for 5 minutes and you're like, okay, I'm going to record some things now. And then the phone's going away. And I'm going to go into my bubble and just make what I'm making and not feel this pressure like I have to record it. You don't have to. So those are my tips for being able to record bits and pieces of your process. But again, this isn't meant to be like a how to do social media as an artist. It's more like a pondering. Another thing I want to talk about is, does creating content actually have an impact and improve your art career, your business, your sales? And the short answer is yes. I think that growing my Instagram following, even though it's not huge, and that's kind of the main social media platform I use. I guess I use Pinterest, which is more of a search engine. But regardless, I think having some social media presence, whether that's one platform or a couple, will improve your business, because even if it's not directly producing sales every single time you post something, it is like building your brand, building recognition. Like I mentioned, you don't necessarily have to be turning into like a full-blown content creator and feeding the algorithm and doing all these things, but at the same time, it does help. I think that just like posting pictures of your art on Instagram, just unfortunately with the way the algorithm is, like doesn't have a huge impact. Although I do know some artists who do that and they're doing awesome. So there's definitely room for that. But for me, I feel like doing, buying into the game a little bit and creating content has definitely helped with like getting more sales, getting more traffic to my website and all of that. Any way that you can kind of like build attention for yourself does help. But I think sometimes like I even get lost where I'm kind of like I'll have a Instagram reel that does really well. It gets like thousands of views and I'm like, awesome, but I haven't really gotten more followers from it. And it's like the kind of content that's more just like fun for Instagram and not necessarily like attracting people who are looking to buy art. So that's just something I kind of keep in mind is like balancing out those two things. But I I will say it's worth it. Like it's worth sometimes feeling like, okay, I'm, making a very like TikTok-y kind of video and it's fun. And it doesn't mean that everyone has to do that, but I kind of like mixing in kind of pure content creation with sharing my art. So, yeah, I would say it helps. And it's again like this whole video is not, there's no like solution or answer here. I'm just kind of like sharing my thoughts on wearing the hat of a content creator and a fine artist and like how I'm approaching all of that. And sometimes it's weird because I don't honestly share like that deep on my Instagram and I haven't shown like that much of my process here on YouTube, but I do sometimes feel like I'm revealing this thing that was like my own private bubble for my whole life until I started sharing on Instagram. And it's like one thing to show your art, but showing behind the scenes and doing it in a way that social media kind of feeds on nowadays, which is just like showing all of it, is very strange because I think most artists, most fine artists, maybe not most, but the kind of what you think of when you think of fine artists a lot of times is introverts, and I'm definitely an introvert. And having that little like world that I went into where it was like just my sketches or my collages or like my little like scribbles to myself, that was all just like in my own little world. And I didn't show that much of it to the rest of the world until I started sharing on Instagram. And so it's fun to share behind the scenes, but there are still some things that I keep that are just for me. And that's partly just because like it's my own weird thoughts and things that I don't necessarily want to share. And also it keeps the process like for me, like it's still this like fun place where I get to go and create things and have my own little world. So you can still retain that too, I think. So having said all this, I am going to leave you with a little peek at what I've been making this week and letting you in on my process a little bit. So this is for a gallery show I have coming up. And if you want to stay in the loop about my gallery shows or originals for sale or prints, definitely get on my studio list newsletter. That'll be linked down below. And then I also have a free newsletter that's just for artists where I share tips and encouragement and more of these like ponderings on being a fine artist, a working fine artist. And I'd love to have you. So definitely check out both links are below to both newsletters. And I will see you soon.